Final inductee this evening into the Wrestling MediaCon Hall of Fame, and truly deserved. The one, the only, Dave Meltzer!
Dave. Thank you guys. I really appreciate this. You guys. I've been inducted into, I guess, a couple of previous Hall of Fames, and this is just, for whatever reason, I guess maybe because it's in the UK, I've always wanted to come here for wrestling. I came here once for UFC. This feels really different. The last 2 weeks, really, of my life, it has just been something where I never look back because I'm too busy working. I work really, really hard, and I love doing The Observer. I've been so fortunate to meet so many wonderful people over the last 46 years covering pro wrestling. I started when I was 11 years old in 1971. I did a newsletter and through, when I was in grade school and junior high school, and a little bit in high school. Then I stopped, and then when I was in college, I started up again with the Wrestling Observer, and I never stopped. 36 years, every week. I think Brian Alvarez, who's my partner, said that I have probably written more than any person alive. I don't know if that's true, but it's probably pretty close. But I just want to, say I've been very lucky to have so many wonderful people in my life. I want to start with my parents, who they're awesome. They were just awesome parents, the best parents anyone could ever have. We all go through good days and bad days, and I was so happy that a couple of years ago that they got to go to the Luthez George Tragos Hall of Fame when they inducted me there, because my parents, they knew who Luthez was. They were from a very different era, and Luthez was a friend of mine, so that was really special to me in a certain way. But when that night happened, I was really feeling like I was doing that for my parents. I didn't really think about it for myself. And this one, I'm sitting back, and after last week All In, it was kind of an emotional experience for me, because it's like life really changed, wrestling's really changed. When I started doing this, wrestling was such a different world. It was a kayfabe world, and what I did, he said, is people hated me. I was public enemy number 2 in wrestling behind Vern Gagne, maybe even later number 2 behind Vince McMahon. And then I guess in the last couple of years, I didn't really realize it, but there's a new generation. We're really lucky. I want to tell you guys, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, we're going to look back. How some people look back at certain eras, like in the 80s, they look at Jim Crockett Promotions, or they look at the tag team era, with someone, or whatever it is. The Attitude Era, we all remember how popular pro wrestling was. It was ridiculously popular. So you guys here probably remember, because the Wembley show, 1982, it wasn't that big in the United States then, but the Wembley show here was, how could it be bigger, right? 80,000 people and everything like that. So we're going to look back at this period because of the quality of the wrestling and the quality of the guys in wrestling. It's a completely different type of guy. And I look back, and it was like, when I started, there were things wrong with wrestling, and there were things right with wrestling. One of the things, if I'm going to say, that has changed, and it's not for the better, is the interviews, okay? If you look back in the 80s and you look at those interviews, man, those guys, Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes and people like that, these guys were, Terry Funk, these guys were masters of the interview craft. And I wish we had guys like that, but we don't. But what we do have now is we have young guys, and not even so young guys, but we have guys who grew up as fans, and they grew up watching Bret Hart wrestling, right? It wasn't so much, nothing against Hulk Hogan, but these guys watched Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, and these guys wanted to be like Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage, and we got a generation of guys that grew up like that, and these guys are just phenomenal wrestlers. people are going like, oh, you're giving too many 5-star matches this year. And it's like every week I see matches that would have been match of the year 5-10 years ago. The art is elevated, and then I'm watching these guys, Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi and Ishii, Tanahashi, Okada. These guys in the G1 this year, these guys just killed it. I mean, it was like almost like an emotional experience watching the whole thing. So anyway, I gotta thank my parents. I gotta thank Brian Alvarez, who is not just my podcast partner, but I want to tell you something. I don't really think about it that much, but I'm so lucky that we, through weird circumstances, came into each other's lives because, Brian is really one of the best friends I've ever had in my life. If something bad happens, I mean, when my dad got stricken with cancer, I was thinking about this. The first thing I did was call Brian, and it's like, that's when you know who your real best friends are. And I wish he was here. He's got a young daughter, and this was a pretty long trip and everything like that. But I know that I just want to say, like, Brian, thank you for all the help, that everything you've done for me, and I will always appreciate it the rest of my life. I do want to mention my son right there because he's a wonderful son, straight A student. He's gonna, I couldn't be blessed, like I said, with better parents. I couldn't be blessed with better children. Cody and Carly and Marianne helped me so much. They're so, they all have their great qualities and everything like that. And my son's almost like a best friend now, And some of it is to do. He grew up. He was not a wrestling fan. He never watched it. In the last year or two, we've started going to some matches. We kind of bonded around PWG. And by the way, I'll tell you something, man, PWG, that is an awesome night out. I mean, I'll tell you what, you don't have to be a wrestling fan, and he'll tell you this, you don't have to be a wrestling fan. You go to PWG, every time you're gonna have a good time. It's just a really special thing. Again, through this whole thing, we went through some tragic periods with wrestling. We had a lot of wrestlers die young, and that's another thing that the guys of this generation, it's a new generation, man, and it's so heartwarming to me to see that guys are getting to the top through their ability. They're getting through, it's always going to be somewhat of a cosmetic business, but it's less of a cosmetic business and it's more of a performance business than it's ever been. And that's because of you fans. You fans, you changed the business by what you liked, by who you supported. You told the promoters that Daniel Bryan can be a superstar. When they didn't believe it, you have told the whole world that the Young Bucks can be the best tag team in the world, even if they're not in the WWE. The whole business has changed. It's amazing. I'll watch Revolution Pro, and I'll watch the Okada-Zack Sabre match. You guys remember, some of you guys saw that match.
Yeah.
And I'm just watching this, and it was like, you watch the thing, and you watch that finish, and it was real, that finish, it was like, oh my God, that's, you know it, but it's so different. And then Cody and Nick Aldis had something pretty close to that this last week. I'm gonna tell you, I'm really, I don't want to play favorites, and people will accuse me of it, but I'm really proud of those guys, man. Those guys risked their money. Those guys, when those guys set that thing up, and some people here go, oh, that whole bet thing, that was like a work. But that whole bet thing was a work, and it was not, and I was buddies with them, and as soon as Cody tweeted me that thing, and I thought, oh God, if they lose money, I'm gonna feel so guilty, and when they did that, it was still a risk. By the time they put tickets on sale, I had no worries because I knew those guys were going to sell so much merchandise at that show that even if they didn't sell out, that they were going to make a profit. And listen, they sold that place out in 29 minutes, and that was a great Matisic. Just a wonderful, knowledgeable guy. A lot of you guys don't know it. He helped run the St. Louis office with Sam Mushnick, and him coming into my life, that was a pivotal thing. Bruiser Brody, some of you guys know Bruiser Brody. It's one of the tragic stories. I tell you, I was sitting there watching All In, and I was just thinking like, Bruiser Brody was the king of the independents and he wrestled in Japan and all that. And I was thinking like, if he was sitting there in that box with me and I wanted Terry Funk there, and unfortunately Terry's health was not there, but Terry Funk and Bruno Sammartino, I just want to tell you guys, like, this business has incredible real history. I hate it when they fake the history. You guys know that. The real history of this business is so incredible. It's so interesting. And I know, like, Bruno was such they wanted to make a motion picture on Bruno Sammartino's life. And he said the only way he would do it is if you tell the real story. And the Hollywood studios, they wanted to fantasize, like all those TV movies that you see or movies based on real life. They're so Hollywoodized and the subjects, and you look and you go like, it didn't really happen like this. And I keep thinking like, but the real story is so good, why embellish? Why do you have to embellish when the real life is so great? And, Bruno Sammartino's life was amazing, and it was a heartbreak when Bruno passed away. And I just want to say, like, thanks to Bruno, thanks to Terry Funk, Pat Patterson, who I hung out with today. The first time I ever watched pro wrestling on television, the first time I ever went to a live show, Pat Patterson was in the main event. He was an amazing worker, but his contributions to this business go far beyond being an amazing worker. I mean, as far as he was the brains behind the Royal Rumble because he grew up or participated in the San Francisco Battle Royals, and he changed that whole thing. He booked WWE during the Hogan era, and later some of the biggest matches of all time were his brainchilds. And a lot of people, the Bret Harts and the Shawn Michaels and people like that, the Vince McMahon wasn't so sold on at first because of their size. It was like he was pushing them, and even like Daniel Bryan. I didn't even know this story. You guys know when Daniel Bryan got fired for choking Justin Roberts with his tie. And a lot of people in hindsight think it was just, they told him to lay low for a couple of weeks and we were always going to bring you back. That is not true. Vince McMahon thought he was done with him. And Pat Patterson, during that period, kept going like, this guy's got talent. I saw him in a match with Batista. He made Batista look really good. And we need to bring him back. And Vince was telling him, no, he's done and all this. And the day that Bryan Danielson, was about to agree to terms, the day he was going to sign his contract was the day that Pat Patterson convinced Vince McMahon to bring him back. And that was a great story that the fans made. It's funny because like with WWE, WWE has created, they've done so much for the business. I can't ever take that away. And I don't want anyone to ever like think, WWE is bad. WWE is trying to cater to the most people possible. There's a lot of times I don't agree with what they do, but that's fine. Vince McMahon's been great for professional wrestling. He's changed it. A lot of the changes haven't been for the better, but they have, they were, the end of the territorial system, that was inevitable. Cable TV changed the business. But the thing with all that is that, it's again, as the years go by, people have gotten a lot more open-minded about what kind of talent can be big stars. It used to be larger-than-life stars. Now we got great wrestlers, and we got a great business now. All of you guys who read my stuff over the years, I want to thank you so much. You made my life. I look back, and I usually don't have time to look back, but I look back this morning, and it was, for 46 years. 46 freaking years, guys. And I mean, I work so hard for you guys, and sometimes I get a little bit too, what's the word I'm looking for? A little thin-skinned at times, we all do, and I can't afford to be thin-skinned, but I think that when it comes to integrity and honesty, those are the things. I mean, I will never lie to you guys. I can't. My dad, man, that guy never told a lie in his life, at least as far as I know, as far as I can tell. And that was my role model. And I was not as good a person as he was, but I strived to be as good a person as he was. And, if you're talking about, man, I was, not just the wrestlers, but I got to talk about Frank DeFord. When Frank DeFord was my idol as a kid, because I wanted to be a sports writer. I was always going to be a sports writer. It wasn't necessarily professional wrestling. I ended up with professional wrestling, ended up with mixed martial arts, but pro wrestling is where I made my name. And one day, when he was starting a newspaper in the United States called The National. It's going to be the first national sports newspaper. And it only lasted about 16 months. But one day, I'm at my apartment, and I get a phone call, and it's Frank DeFord. And it's like, I knew he was going to start The National, and it's like, the only thing he could be calling me about is a pro wrestling column, because, you know, why would he be calling me? And he did. And it was almost like I had this feeling that, like, I willed my life at that moment. It's like, because that was the impetus that allowed the Observer to really flourish, was those 16 months and the notoriety they got from him. And it was like my idol, the best sports writer in America over the last 50 years. And, you know, the stuff he said about me, it really just, you know, that's the greatest thing in the world, when you got the best sports writer, you know, maybe you ever lived, but certainly the best sports writer of the last 50 years. And he said that Dave Meltzer is the best reporter in sports journalism. And that quote he's made many times until he passed away. And I mean, it's like, no matter what anyone says, you can never take that one away. I mean, that's when your idol says that. And I grew up, and all these guys that, like, I grew up, you know, I didn't idolize wrestlers, but I loved these, like, Terry Funk and Dory Funk and Patterson and you know, Ric Flair, oh my God, Dusty Rhodes. And these guys, I mean, I had my period where I didn't like Dusty too, but at the end, you know, I mean, Dusty Rhodes was such a super charismatic guy. When I went to Florida, you know, I saw when he first turned babyface, and it was electric. Some of those charismatic guys I've ever seen. Bruno Sammartino is another one. And I got to know all these guys. Some of them as just acquaintances. Some of them as really good friends. Terry Funk taught me so much about this business without telling me anything. He would, you know, keep an open mind. I remember I would watch All Japan Women. I watched it, and it was like, they were so far ahead of the time. And I was just like, I'm not going to watch this. This almost intimidated me how good they were. And Terry Funk was, nope, that's your job. You got to be, they're ahead of the curve. You watch these wrestlers who work faster and work harder. And it's like, it's going to be that way. They're going to tell you that they have no psychology. And the older guys are going to tell you they don't know how to work. But in time, that's going to be what work is. And that's kind of like the philosophy I've had, you know, where in recent years people will go, oh God, they do too much. And I think that too, because I grew up from a different generation, but man, I appreciate it, and they learn. You know, these guys in their 20s, when they get to their 30s, they figure it out. And the psychology of these guys, man, it is the storytelling ability that some of these guys have. It's incredible. How many of you guys watched that Okada Omega match from the one in Dominion this year? I've never seen a better wrestling match in my life. I've seen a lot, and you know, I've seen a lot of fantastic matches. It's hard to like say one is the best, but I was watching that thing in awe, and I was with all my friends, and we're sitting there watching it, and they're just looking at me when that match is over, and they said, "That's the best match that we've ever seen, and man, is your next week going to be hell." Because the minute you say that, it's going to be everyone from everywhere, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. And if your opinion's different, God bless you. There's no right or wrong when it comes to opinion. My opinion is my opinion. I'm always going to give it to you. You don't have to agree with my opinion. When it comes to the news, I'm always going to give you the straight news. If it's wrong, I'll tell you it's wrong the next week. I'm not making stuff up or anything like that. And I'm going to do this as long as I can do, as long as Brian has me before he goes. You're washed up and you're gone, which hopefully is going to be for a long, long time. And, my enthusiasm is the same as it's always been. And, you know, I want to thank all you guys that are here. I want to thank anyone who's watching on Fight TV, who's a subscriber, or any of the subscribers who will see this, however it shows up. You know, everything shows up somewhere. Thank you guys for everything. Thank you guys for being, this is a wonderful community. And we went
this business, we lost a lot of good people over the years, you know, from drug issues, which was a horrible period. And that's another thing. When I was like at All In, we had the older guys and we had the younger guys. And those younger guys, and they weren't wasted, and they're taking, you know, they used to go like, oh, to perform in this business, you have to take all those pills. And these younger guys, they're working as hard as anyone, and they're not, you know, they're, you know, they learn from the past. And I hope everybody learns from the past. There were horrible things in this business, and it's a better business now than it's ever been for a lot of the guys. Guys can make great money in WWE. Thanks to you guys and understanding what the independent guys do. You guys understand it. You guys know how hard these guys work for you, little by little, fan by fan. You know, those guys, when they talk to me about it, it's like, when they meet you guys at meet and greets, and then the same with me, when I meet you guys at, you know, with the things like today and things like that, it's like, you know, we appreciate you guys for being the backbone of the niche aspect of wrestling. And the niche aspect of wrestling is a wonderful thing that's going to go on forever. There's always going to be, you guys enable so many of these guys who, under normal circumstances, so many of the top guys, Kevin Owens, Daniel Bryan, these guys, Sami Zayn, what? Yeah. But all of these guys that we're talking about, without you, they don't make it in pro wrestling. It's you guys who made them stars, and WWE, you know, didn't think they were, but it's like, well, you know, we'll take them. And because the cream doesn't always, but the cream often rises to the top. And I know you guys appreciate all the Bret Harts and the Shawn Michaels and the Kobashis and Nature Boy and everybody like that who gave us hours and hours and hours of entertainment. And I want to thank everybody in that aspect of the world. And again, and thank you guys. I love you guys.
Woo! Thank you, Dave.